Donald Trump's presidency has often been described as a political phenomenon, one that redefined modern conservatism and reshaped the Republican Party in his image. Yet, as he embarks on his second term following a razor-thin electoral victory, the cracks in his populist facade are becoming impossible to ignore. For many of his loyal supporters, the early days of Trump's presidency have been marked by feelings of betrayal, confusion, and disillusionment. From unfulfilled promises to controversial appointments and economically damaging policies, Trump's leadership is increasingly alienating the very base that carried him to the White House. As these fissures deepen, the question arises, can Trump maintain the loyalty of his coalition, or will his presidency implode under the weight of unmet expectations and unforced errors? This comprehensive analysis delves into the growing rift between Trump and his supporters, examining the policies, decisions, and controversies that have left many questioning their allegiance to the 45th and now 47th President of the United States. 1. A fractured victory and early signs of trouble. The 2024 presidential election will likely be remembered as one of the most contentious and divisive in modern U.S. history. In a dramatic showdown against Vice President Kamala Harris, Donald Trump secured his re-election by the narrowest of margins. The Electoral College delivered Trump the presidency, but the popular vote told a different story. Harris, buoyed by a surge in urban and suburban voter turnout, outpaced Trump's popular vote total, cementing her place as the third highest vote-getter in U.S. history. This dichotomy highlights the fragile foundation of Trump's victory. While his Electoral College win was decisive, the underlying voter sentiment suggests a nation deeply divided and skeptical of his leadership. The Democratic House Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, encapsulated this sentiment: "You have no mandate to enact extreme right-wing policies. The people want us to work together to lower the high cost of living." Full stop. Despite this warning, Trump's actions in the early days of his second term have signaled a disregard for bipartisanship. Instead of addressing the economic anxieties that fueled his base, Trump has doubled down on polarizing policies and cabinet appointments that many see as out of touch with the priorities of everyday Americans. 2. Policies that hit home. The betrayal of economic promises. One of the central pillars of Trump's appeal has always been his promise to put America first and champion the working class. Yet, his early policy decisions have raised serious doubts about his commitment to this cause. Among his first executive actions were the reintroduction of tariffs on Chinese imports and the announcement of mass deportations aimed at undocumented immigrants. Tariffs that hurt the base. Trump's tariffs, which he touts as a measure to protect American jobs, have had unintended consequences for his supporters. Farmers, who were among Trump's most ardent backers in 2016 and 2020, are feeling the brunt of retaliatory tariffs from China and other trading partners. Soybean farmers, in particular, have seen their export markets shrink, leading to financial ruin for many in the agricultural heartland. In rural Ohio, a farmer and lifelong Republican, John Thompson, expressed his frustration in a local news interview. "He promised us prosperity, but all I see are empty silos and mounting debt. This isn't the America I voted for." Thompson's story is emblematic of a broader trend. The very policies designed to protect American industries are instead exacerbating economic hardships. The immigration crackdown. Trump's renewed focus on mass deportations has also sparked backlash within his base, particularly among industries that rely on immigrant labor. The agricultural and construction sectors, which have long depended on undocumented workers, are facing severe labor shortages as deportations ramp up. This has led to higher costs for consumers and further strained small businesses. A conservative voter from Arizona summed up the sentiment on a popular online forum: "I'm all for securing the border, but this blanket deportation policy is killing our economy. We need a more practical solution." This growing discontent reflects a disconnect between Trump's rhetoric and the realities faced by his supporters. 3. Controversial cabinet picks and internal backlash. One of the most contentious aspects of Trump's second term has been his cabinet appointments. While Trump has always favored loyalty over traditional qualifications, his latest picks have sparked outrage even among his staunchest allies. Matt Gaetz's Attorney General bid. The nomination of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General was a lightning rod for criticism. Gaetz, a polarizing figure with a history of ethical scandals, was forced to withdraw his bid after widespread backlash from both Democrats and Republicans. Even Trump supporters were left questioning his judgment. Is it 4D chess, or did they really not think Gaetz would get blowback? Wrote a disillusioned voter on a conservative subreddit. The failed nomination highlighted a recurring issue in Trump's presidency, his tendency to prioritize personal loyalty over competence, often to disastrous effect. Dr. Mehmet Oz and healthcare leadership. Perhaps even more controversial was Trump's appointment of Dr. Mehmet Oz to oversee Medicare and Medicaid. Oz, known for promoting pseudoscience and dubious medical treatments, has faced widespread criticism from the medical community. His nomination has raised serious concerns about the future of two programs that millions of Americans rely on for healthcare. A retired nurse and Trump supporter from Florida voiced her disappointment. I voted for him because I trusted he would protect Medicare, not hand it over to someone who built a career selling miracle pills. This sentiment underscores a growing divide between Trump's promises and his actions. 4. A diversity dilemma. Black conservatives feel left out. Despite securing a higher share of the black vote in 2024 than in previous elections, Trump has struggled to maintain the support of black conservatives. One of the most notable examples is Congressman Byron Donalds, a vocal Trump ally who expressed frustration at being overlooked for a cabinet position. Donalds's public remarks about the lack of diversity in Trump's administration have resonated with many black conservatives who feel sidelined by the president's decisions. This growing discontent threatens to erode Trump's gains among minority voters, a critical component of his electoral coalition. 5. The TikTok awakening, realizing Obamacare's true identity. Social media platforms like TikTok have become unlikely battlegrounds in the political discourse surrounding Trump's policies. One of the most viral trends involves Trump supporters discovering that the Affordable Care Act, ACA, or Obamacare, is the very program they rely on for healthcare. In one particularly poignant video, a Trump voter tearfully recounted how her mother's cancer treatment was made possible by the ACA. I had no idea this was Obamacare, she admitted. These stories highlight the dangers of misinformation and the real-world consequences of Trump's rhetoric. 6. A base divided. The fallout of Trump's governance. Even Trump's most loyal political allies are not immune to the backlash. From Congresswoman Nancy Mace's controversial bathroom policy to Nikki Haley's criticism of Tulsi Gabbard's appointment as Director of National Intelligence, the internal divisions within the Republican Party are becoming increasingly apparent. These controversies, combined with Trump's polarizing leadership style, have left his base fractured and uncertain about the future. For many, the promise of a better America under Trump's leadership now feels like an unfulfilled dream. As Donald Trump's second term unfolds, the growing rift between him and his supporters is becoming impossible to ignore. From economic policies that hurt his base to controversial cabinet appointments and unfulfilled promises, Trump's actions are alienating the very people who propelled him to power. For Trump, the stakes could not be higher. In a political landscape defined by razor-thin margins, losing the trust of his core supporters could spell disaster. As the cracks in his coalition deepen, one thing is clear. The greatest threat to Trump's presidency may not come from his political opponents, but from the disillusionment of his own base.